Back with part 4 of this week's reading of the Messianic Jewish Family Bible, Tree of Life Version, TLV. And this week we have been covering Ezekiel chapters 17 to 32. And we are going to begin this part in chapter 28. And we began actually towards the end of part 3, the downfall of Tyre. So Tyre is the community of Tyre has been being addressed, and it's going to continue as well in chapter 28. The pride for Tyre, Tyre. The word of Adonai came to me, saying, Son of man, say to the prince of Tyre, Thus says Adonai Elohim, so your heart is exalted, and you say, I am a god. I sit in the seat of the gods in the heart of the seas. I'm sorry, I had to pause that for a second just to get a drink of water. So I'm going to start that again. Son of man, say to the prince of Tyre, Thus says Adonai Elohim, so your heart is exalted, and you say, I am a god. I sit in the seat of the gods in the heart of the seas. Yet you are human, not a god, even if you set up your heart like the heart of a god. See, you are wiser than Daniel. No secret is hidden from you. By your wisdom and by your understanding, you have made wealth for yourself and have gathered gold and silver in your treasuries. In your great skill by your trade, you have increased your wealth, so your heart is exalted by your wealth. Therefore, thus says Adonai Elohim, because you have set up your heart like the heart of God, behold, I will bring strangers against you, the ruthless of the nations. They will draw their swords against you, the beauty of your wisdom. They will defile your splendor. They will bring you down to the pit. You will die the death of those slain in the heart of the seas. Will you still say, I am a god before the one who slays you? Yet you are man and not a god. In the hand of those who pierce you, you will die the deaths of the uncircumcised at the hand of strangers. For I have spoken, it is a declaration of Adonai. When we're reading this, the pride for Tyre, you almost think of the evil one, and his downfall, and how he let pride, um, he tried to elevate himself above God, got all puffed up with pride, and this is the same thing happening here as well, and it's a big downfall. Pride comes before a fall. The second part is lament for Tyre. The word of Adonai came to me, saying, Son of man, lift up a lament for the king of Tyre. Say to him, Thus says Adonai Elohim, you were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. You were in Eden, the garden of God. Every precious stone was your covering. Yes, this is speaking of, you can know that had been the cherubim, um, actually Lucifer, when he was Lucifer before he had his fall. Every precious stone was your covering: ruby, topaz, and diamond, beryl, onyx, and jasper, sapphire, turquoise and emerald, your settings, and your sockets, a workmanship of gold. In the day you were created, they were prepared. You were an anointed guardian cherub. I placed you on the holy mountain of God. You walked among stones of fire. You were perfect in your ways from the day you were created until unrighteousness was found in you. By the abundance of your trade, they filled you within violence. So you have sinned. And this he certainly did. He brought sin to heaven. So I threw you out as a profane thing from the mountain of God. I made you vanish, guardian cherub, from among the stones of fire. Now, if you know, the evil one, before he was called the evil one, his name was Lucifer in heaven. He was actually a very loved angel that God created, and he gave him a lot of authority in heaven. He was thought to be part of the praise and worship team. He decided who was allowed to go before the throne of God. So he just allowed, and he was made very beautiful, as is described here. But he got very prideful and wanted to overthrow God, our Creator, all of our Creator. and he's a created being. The evil one did not create himself. He can't create anything. Only God can create. So he got thrown out of heaven because of he became sinful, prideful, puffed himself up, and unrighteousness was found in him as a result. And he actually, by doing what he did, brought sin into heaven. So he was thrust out of away from the holy mountain of God. So I threw you out as a profane thing from the mountain of God. I made you vanish, guardian cherub, from among the stones of fire. Your heart was exalted because of your beauty. You corrupted your wisdom because of your splendor. I threw you down to earth. Before kings I set you up as a spectacle. By the multitudes of your iniquity and the injustice of your trade, you profaned your sanctuaries. So I brought fire out from within you, and it has consumed you. I have turned you to ashes on the earth in the eyes of all who saw you. All who knew, all who know you among the people will be appalled at you. You have become a horror and will be nothing forever. So those that are worshiping him, the evil one, will be appalled by him in eternal damnation because they'll look at him and say, is this what got us here? We followed this we got here, and this is what we have to deal with because of him. The word of Adonai came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face towards Sidon, Sidon, and prophesy against her. Say, Thus says Adonai Elohim, Behold, I am against you, Zidon. I will be glorified in your midst. They will know that I am Adonai when I execute judgments in her and show my holiness through her. I will send a plague to her and blood in her streets. The wounded will fall in her midst by the sword on every side, so they will know that I am Adonai. Never again will there be a briar pricking at the house of Israel, or a piercing thorn from any around them who scorn them. They will know that I am the Lord Adonai. Thus says Adonai Elohim, when I have gathered the house of Israel from the people among whom they are scattered and show my holiness through them in the eyes of the nations, then they will live in their own land which I gave to my servant Jacob. They will live safely there, and they will build houses and plant vineyards. They will live securely when I have executed judgment on all those around them that treated them with contempt, so they will know that I am Adonai their God. So in the end, Israel will prevail because God will come and fight for them and have them dwelling safely in their land that belongs to them, is what he's saying. And in Luke chapter 10, verse 18, there's another illustration made by Yeshua about the fall of the evil one. And Yeshua said to them, I was watching Satan fall like lightning from heaven. Chapter 29, Prophecy against Egypt. Now we're going to be talking about Egypt in chapter 29. On the 12th day of the 10th month of the 10th year, the word of Adonai came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against the Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Prophesy against him and against all Egypt. Speak and say, Thus says Adonai Elohim, Behold, I am against you, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, the great crocodile lying in his rivers, who says, My Nile is my own, I made it for myself. I will put hooks in your jaws and make the fish of your streams stick to your scales. I will haul you up from within your rivers, and all the fish of your streams will stick to your scales. I will leave you in the desert, you and all the fish of your streams. You will fall on the open field. You will not be gathered or picked up. I will give you as food for the beasts of the earth and the birds of the sky. Then all the inhabitants of Egypt will know that I am Adonai, because they were as staff of reed to the house of Israel. When they took hold of you by the hand, you snapped and tore all their shoulders. When they leaned on you, you broke and wrenched all their hips. Therefore, thus says Adonai Elohim, Behold, I will bring a sword against you. I will cut off your man and beast. The land of Egypt will become desolate and waste. Then they will know that I am Adonai, because he said, The Nile is mine, I made it. Therefore, behold, I am against you, and against your rivers. I will make the land of Egypt an utter water I'm sorry, an utter waste and desolation from Migdol to Syene, as far as the border of Ethiopia. No human foot will pass through it, and no foot of beast will pass through it. It will be uninhabited for 40 years. I will make the land of Egypt a desolation among devastated countries. Her cities will be a desolation 40 years among ruined cities. I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations and disperse them throughout the countries. For thus says Adonai Elohim, at the end of 40 years I will gather the Egyptians from the peoples where they were scattered. I will restore the fortunes of Egypt. I will cause them to return to the land of Pathros, the land of their origin, but they will be a lowly kingdom there. It will be the lowliest of kingdoms. It will no longer exalt itself above the nations. I will diminish them so that they no longer rule over the nations. It will no longer be as security for the house of Israel, bringing to mind the iniquity of their turning after them, so they will know that I am Adonai. On the first day of the first month of the 27th year, the word of Adonai came to me, saying, Son of man, Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, made his army labor hard against Tyre. Every head became bald, and every shoulder chafed. But he and his army had no profit from Tyre for the labor that he had expended against it. Therefore, thus says Adonai Elohim, Behold, I will give the land of Egypt to Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. He will carry off her abundance, take her spoil, and take her prey. It will be the wages for his army. I have given him the land of Egypt as his wages for which he served, because they worked for me. It is a declaration of Adonai. The last part is the Messianic horn. In that day I will cause a horn to shoot up for the house of Israel. I will open your mouth among them. They will know that I am Adonai. And continuing on with Egypt, the doom of Egypt in chapter 30. The word of Adonai came to me, saying, Son of man, prophesy, and say, Thus says Adonai Elohim. Wail, alas, for the day is near, the day of Adonai is near, the day of clouds, a time for the nations. A sword will come against Egypt. Anguish will be in Ethiopia when the slain fall in Egypt. They will take away her abundance, her foundations will be torn down. Ethiopia put in Lud, all the mixed people, Libya, and children of the covenant land will fall with them by the sword. Thus says Adonai Elohim, those who support Egypt will fall. The pride of her power will collapse. From Migdol to Syene, they will fall within her by the sword. It is a declaration of Adonai. They will be desolate among desolate lands. Her cities will be among ruined cities. They will know that I am Adonai when I have set a fire in Egypt and all her supporters are destroyed. On that day messengers will go out from before me, in ships to frighten Ethiopians out of complacency. Anguish will come on them as on the day of Egypt, for behold, it is coming. Thus says Adonai Elohim, I will put away the pomp of Egypt by the hand of Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon. He and his people with him, the ruthless of the nations, will be brought in to destroy the land. They will draw their swords against Egypt and fill the land with the slain. I will make the rivers dry. I will sell the land into the hand of evildoers. I will make the land desolate and all that is in it by the hand of strangers. I, Adonai, have spoken it. Thus says Adonai Elohim, I will destroy the idols. I will destroy the pagan gods from Noph. There will no longer be a prince in the land of Egypt. I will strike terror in the land of Egypt. I will make Pathros desolate. I will set a fire in Zon. I will execute judgments in No. I will pour my fury on Sin, the stronghold of Egypt. I will cut off the multitude in No. I will set a fire in Egypt. Sin will writhe in anguish. No will be assaulted. No will face enemies daily. The young men of Avon and Pi Beseth will fall by the sword, and the women will go into captivity. In Tehef, Tehephanes the day will grow dark when I break the yokes of Egypt there. The pride of her power will cease in her. A cloud will cover her. Her daughters will go into captivity, so I will execute judgments in Egypt, and they will know that I am Adonai. On the 7th day of the first month of the 11th year, The word of Adonai came to me, saying, Son of man, I have broken the arm of Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Behold, it has not been bound up to be healed or put in a splint, so that it is wrapped up with a bandage to grow strong to wield the sword. Therefore, thus says Adonai Elohim, I am against Pharaoh, king of Egypt. I will break his arms, the strong one, and the one that was broken I will cause the sword to fall out of his hand. I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations and disperse them throughout the countries. I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon and put my sword into his hand. I will break the arms of Pharaoh, so he will groan before him like a fatally wounded man. I will strengthen the arms of the king of Babylon, but Pharaoh's arms will fall. So they will know that I am Adonai when I put my sword into the hand of the king of Babylon, and he stretches it out against the land of Egypt. I will scatter the Egyptians among the nations and disperse them throughout the countries. Then they will know that I am Adonai. And that is the end of chapter 30. And we continue on in chapter 31, the fall of the haughty cedar. On the first day of the third month of the 11th year, the word of Adonai came to me, saying, Son of man, say to the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and to his multitude, Who is like you in your greatness? Behold, Assyria was a cedar in Lebanon, with beautiful branches shadowing the forest of lofty height. Its tops was its top was in leafy branches. Water nourished it, the deep made it tall, with its rivers going around its planting, as it sent out its water courses to all the trees of the field. Therefore its height was loftier than all the trees of the field. Its branches multiplied, and its boughs became long, because of the abundant water in its shoots. All the birds of the sky nested in its branches. All the beasts of the field gave birth to their young under its branches. All great nations lived under its shade. It was beautiful in its greatness, in the length of its branches, for its root was in abundant water. The cedars in the garden of God could not compare with it. No cypress trees could rival its boughs. No plane trees could match its branches. No tree in the garden of God could compare to its beauty. I made it beautiful with its many limbs. All the trees of Eden in God's garden envied it. Therefore, thus says Adonai Elohim, because you were exalted in height, its top set up among leafy branches, its heart haughty in its height, I gave it into the hand of a ruler of nations, who surely dealt with it. I drove it out as befits its wickedness. Ruthless barbarians from the nations cut it down. They cast it down on the mountains, and in all the valleys its branches fell. Its branches have laid broken. In all the stream beds of the land, all the people of the earth have come out from its shade and abandoned it. All the birds of the sky lived on its fallen trunk, and all the beasts of the field upon its fallen branches. So none of the trees by the water should exalt themselves in their height, or set their top among the leafy or if you want to pronounce it, boughs. None of their well-watered mighty ones should attain their height, for they have all been given to death, to the lowest regions under the earth, among the children of men who go down to the pit. Thus says Adonai Elohim, in the day when he went down to Sheol, I caused the deep to mourn and cover itself for him. I restrained his rivers, so the great waters were stopped. I made Lebanon mourn for him. All the trees of the field wilt away for it. I made the nations tremble at the sound of its fall, when I cast him down to Sheol with those who descend into the pit. All the well-watered trees of Eden, the choice and best of Lebanon, were comforted in the lowest parts of the earth. They also went down with him to Sheol, to those slain by the sword, those who were in mighty those were his mighty arm, who those who were his mighty arm, who lived in the shadow among the nations. Who is like you in glory and greatness among the trees of Eden? You will be brought down with the trees of Eden to the lowest parts of the earth. You will lie among the uncircumcised with those slain by the sword. This is Pharaoh and all his multitude. It is the declaration of Adonai. And chapter 32, and the final chapter for this week in the book of Ezekiel, is Lamentations for Pharaoh. On the first day of the 12th month of the 12th year, the word of Adonai came to me, saying, Son of man, lift up a lament for Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and say to him, You compare yourself to a young lion of the nations, but you are a crocodile in the waters. You thrash about in your rivers, and muddy the water with your feet, and foul their streams. Thus says Adonai Elohim, I will throw my net over you with a host of many peoples. They will haul you up in my net. I will leave you on the land. I will hurl you on an open field. I will cause all the birds of the sky to settle upon you. I will gorge the beasts of the whole earth with you. I will strew your flesh on the mountains and fill the valleys with your refuse. I will drench this land with the flow of your blood up to the hills. The ravens will be full of you. When I extinguish you, I will cover the sky and darken the stars. I will cover the sun with cloud, and the moon will not give her light. It will darken all of the heaven's bright lights over you and set darkness on your land. It is a declaration of Adonai. I will disturb the hearts of many peoples when I bring about your destruction among the nations into lands you have not known. I will make many people appalled at you. Their kings will be totally aghast at you when I brandish my sword over you. They will shudder every moment, every man for his own life on the day of your downfall. For thus says Adonai Elohim, the sword of the king of Babylon will come upon you. By the swords of the mighty I will cause your multitude to fall. They are ruthless among the nations. They will devastate the pride of Egypt. All of its multitude will be annihilated. I will destroy all the beasts from beside plentiful water. No human foot will muddy them again, nor will hooves of beasts muddy them. Then I will make their waters settle and make their streams flow like oil. It is a declaration of Adonai. When I make the land of Egypt desolate and waste, when it was previously full, when I strike all that live there, they will know that I am Adonai. This is the funeral song. Chant it, daughters of the nation of Egypt. I'm sorry, chant it, daughters of the nations. Chant for Egypt. All her multitude will chant it. It is a declaration of Adonai. On the 15th day of the month in the 12th year, the word of Adonai came to me, saying, Son of man, wail over Egypt's throng. Bring them down, her and the daughters of the lofty nations, to the underworld, to those who go down to the pit. Who do you surpass in beauty? Go down, lie with the uncircumcised. They fall among those slain by the sword. She is given over to the sword. They drag her down with all her throng. The strongest warriors will speak of him and his allies from the midst of Sheol. They have gone down. They lie still, the uncircumcised, slain by the sword. Assyria is there, and all her company, their graves surround them, all of them slain, fallen by the sword. Her graves are set in the deepest part of the pit. Her company surrounds her grave, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, who put terror in the land of the living. There is Elam and her multitude surrounding her grave, all of them slain, fallen by the sword, who went down uncircumcised into the underworld, who caused terror in the land of the living. They bear their disgrace with those who go down to the pit. They have made her a bed among the slain with all her throng, her graves about them, all of them uncircumcised, slain, fallen by the sword, though they caused terror in the land of the living. So they bear their disgrace with those who get out of the pit. They are laid among the slain. Meshach, Tubal is there, and all her throng, her graves around them, all of them uncircumcised, slain by the sword. Though they spread their terror in the land of the living, they do not lie with the mighty, the fallen from among the uncircumcised who went down to Sheol. With their weapons of war, they put their swords under their heads. Their iniquities rest on their bones, because the terror of the mighty ones was in the land of the living. You also will be shattered and lie among the uncircumcised with those who are slain by the sword. Edom is there, her kings and all her princes, who for all their might are laid with those slain by the sword. They lie with the uncircumcised, with those who go down to the pit. Their princes of the north are there, all of them, all of the Zidonians, who have gone down with the slain, ashamed for all the terror that they caused by their might. They lie uncircumcised with those who go down to the pit. When Pharaoh sees them, he will be comforted for all his throng, Pharaoh and all his army slain by the sword. It is a declaration of Adonai, for I have put my terror in the land of the living. He will lie among the uncircumcised with those slain by the sword, Pharaoh and all the multitude, and all his multitude. It is a declaration of Adonai. And I'm going to come back with the fifth and final part for this week.